How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, great discussion coming your way. I'm going to sit in with Joe Pomponio, Russ Hamilton, and we're going to talk about being connected to this profession. I think it's a worthy dialogue, guys, because at this time, this profession right now will take the best of you. I think Willie Loman said it. Willie Loman from Death of a Salesman said, you can't eat the orange and throw away the peel. And sometimes that's what we feel correction does. It takes the best of us and leaves us with what's left. And I think the big thing here right now, guys, is that we have to find that connection to keep us motivated, develop a purpose. And what we're going to do today is we're going to share some stories of when we felt that connection, and then basically using that story to help motivate you guys, just in case you're going through moments of, is this profession worth it? And I will be honest with you guys. If you're entering this profession just for the external incentive, the pay and there should be good benefits when you're doing this job. For me, decent pay, great benefits. That's not going to be enough to carry you through those tough times. You know, you're going to need some higher level purpose. And now, guys, as we share these stories and words may come out in like sort of like a general fashion, be mindful. These words are here for you to apply it. So you apply the specifics to what we're giving you, but it is a needed dialogue, guys, because again, through this time, mandated overtime, just the rough part of this profession, I know a lot of us are asking, is it all worth it? And when you think about, is it all worth it? What are you comparing it to? Most of us are comparing it to external incentives. And at that point, it's not matching up. It's not balancing. But what about if you ask the question, is it all worth it? And you had something internal connected to that, an inspiration connected to that? Then the answer may be a little bit easier. And the yes may, be strengthened by your inspiration for that greater purpose. Now, guys, we have 3 sponsors. I just want to bring them in real quick. First, we have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of the Tier Talk channel. Plus, sometimes on the comments, guys, I've been getting some comments from people that are actually going to school or have finished the American Military University, which is pretty cool. I saw one the other day, and they wouldn't have known the school exists if it wasn't for this channel. So it's pretty cool to get that connection and just to be part of this great school. Trust and believe, guys, this school is a great school. They're just supportive, and they have been with me for probably around a decade, because I've been doing Tier Talk since around 2012 or 13. I think it's about a decade now. They call me the OG. I think at this point I should be the OG. Shoot. I definitely am the first correctional podcaster. Okay, so let's get Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit GuardianRFID.com for more information. And guys, GuardianRFID.com. Guys, Guardian RFID is also very supportive of what we do in corrections. Ken Dally, great leader, his whole team, Steve Bernard, Greg Piper, Mackenzie Koch. I mean, guys, we are really lucky to have them also as a part of this family here. So if you guys get a chance, please check out their YouTube channel, because they support us. So in return, it'd be great if you support them. And then we have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That's a book that's used in a lot of training, actually certified in Montana. And you can find that book on Amazon. Link to that is in the description. We also have Lessons Learned While Working in the Prison, My Journey from Officer to Administration. The book is starting to pick up a little bit more steam now. Again, that's available on Amazon. That's just a book with a collection of tips, not just from me, but from other professionals in the profession. And it's just got some really good advice at all levels of your career, and also through whatever department it is that you work for. And I'm currently working on another book right now, just maybe like 10 tips that will help you when you're entering this profession. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a context of, what I feel that tip should be. The first tip is more about knowing who you are and connecting that to something bigger and greater. And then I will find someone from the profession, because I believe that we all have a powerful voice, who can write a story, submit it to me, and then that story will be connected to the context. And it's just going to be a great read. I really feel it's going to be a great read. So my first one is going to have William Young, who's going to talk about his calling, how he worked in the profession, and then found his calling in helping officers with their mental health, or helping correctional staff with their mental health. And that will complete the first chapter. And then I'll have chapters in there with context that will fit for Russ, fit for Joe. And then we'll finally get these two knuckleheads published. Oh, shoot. I don't know if they can hear me. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Because they're in the studio now, and I think they can hear me. I hope they didn't hear me say knucklehead. Let me see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let StreamYard decide. StreamYard. I'm looking for the biggest knucklehead. Oh, whoa! Automatically, Russ, you came.
Here I am.
Got to get you published, Russ. I told you that already, man. Got to get you published.
Yes. How's it going tonight, Anthony?
It's always a pleasure having you on here, Russ. I mean, I think that this is a topic that, Russ, the stuff that you do on the side, Keepers of Chaos, the motivation that you have, even long since retired. I think this is a topic. If anybody is still connected to the profession or ever was at that highest level, it's definitely you, Russ Hamilton. So do you mind introducing yourself? And it's good to have you as always.
Not at all. My name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections. I am also a former senior juvenile correctional officer, and I currently work for a private company where we do reentry and rehabilitation work and programming with a local probation department and a local jail where I am the case manager.
Yeah, and Russ, let's get that Keepers of Chaos. How's that going on Facebook?
Okay, Keepers of Chaos. It's going gangbusters. We're coming up on 6,000 members right now. The thing about Keepers of Chaos is we are really oriented on the profession and the professional. We're all about, the training, history, content, knowledge, and just coming in there. If someone needs some extra help, we're willing to give it to them. I got my main guy on there, Jack Mosley. He's always looking to help promote, and many others. There's too many for me to mention. You go in there and ask a question, and you get the real deal, not a bunch of sour pusses that are, fed up with the profession or they only know how to be negative. But we put in real good work to bring you quality answers, quality suggestions, and the best depth of knowledge that there is anywhere else.
Yep. And I will say, hey guys, just so you know, in all my books I have, Russ is quoted in most of my books. Pretty much he's a big foundation of every book I do. He will be in the next one as a big quote, but I'm hoping that January 1st, 2023, Russ makes a public declaration on this channel to have a book completed by the end of that year. 3,000 words a chapter, 10 chapters, 30,000 words. You can write that in your sleep, and then we get your legacy. Because, Russ, you are meant. I know I said knucklehead before, but I can safely say that in Jersey when you're in California. But, Russ, you are meant to touch the lives of the many. You're meant to create that impact. And I found out that when you want to create that legacy, videos, yeah, they're good. But really the books usually last a lot longer than anything that we're doing here. So got to get that book, Russ, because this world needs your written word. And I mean that. So make that declaration, and all jokes aside, get that book on complacency because it's ready to save lives. It's in your head, man. All you got to do is put it on paper. Hey, wait, whoa. Let me get the celebrity on.
Oh.
We have a local celebrity here. Let me just get him on. Before I introduce Joe, I know your rates have gone up. But today, Joe was on News Nation. So, guys, I want you to look for that video. It should pop up soon. If it does pop up while we're doing this show, I'll put the link in the description. But Joe was on News Nation today talking about the Lopez case out of Texas. He did a phenomenal job, enough so where the people told me that he was great. And it kind of opens up the channel for us to come back onto News Nation, to discuss anything dealing with corrections, prisons, and jails. And I will say a shout out to News Nation because they do watch this channel a lot. I will say that they, in my opinion, are the most objective when it comes to covering these stories because they'll give you the questions ahead of time. And the questions I feel are fair and balanced. They're not meant to point blame, but yet provide information. And Joe, you fucking hit the nail on the head today. Respectful, but also very informative. And well done. Next one is Russ.
Well, I definitely appreciate it, man. It was objective. I was highly impressed.
Yeah, that's. I told you I would never. I like that. I like that channel a little bit, and they've been watching us, so I'm starting to become a big fan of their work. Hey, Joe, you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice of 30 years, and a newfound celebrity panel member for Deer Talk. One of the other three knuckleheads.
We got to get a book out for you too, by the way. I mean, at this point here, you know, you have a lot of knowledge in your head as well. So we definitely got to get that book out for you as well.
Yeah. So much for pushing my hair out.
And it's been a while for Joe. So again, our condolences to Joe, if I may. Joe lost his father recently. And the funny thing about this all, guys, is why Joe was going through this. Joe was still very supportive, making sure if messages had to get out, he was still hitting us up, because at the end of the day, Joe was just that giving. And again, from our hearts to yours, Joe, and again, you know, to your families, we're sorry for the loss of your father. It looked like he was a hero, brother. Looks like he lived a very good life.
Man, 86 years old. He gave it a hell of a run. He went out the exact same way he wanted to, quick and painless. And, he spent 30 years as a military policeman and running stockades. So, you know, he's my hero all the way around and always will be.
Well, looks like you're a reflection of your father. So well done. We all should be so lucky. All right. So, guys, we're going to start off. The topic today is finding a connection to the work you do. I just want to mention something, guys. As I said at the beginning, we're going through rough times. So having said that, when you're going through rough times, a lot of us will question why we're doing it. And I think that's the question we have to be very careful on how we answer, because we're looking for an answer, believe it or not, that motivates us to keep going through the struggle. And if we ask ourselves these questions and then we can't connect to something that keeps us motivated, the problem is we start becoming miserable. But here's the worst part of it all, in my opinion. We start to feel trapped. And that is a really bad feeling to have in a profession that you may do for 25 or 30 years. And the other sad thing about that is you also wind up getting jealous and envious of people who become successful, maybe even leave the profession. And when you should be happy for them because you feel trapped, you wind up being bitter for 25 or 30 years. And for people that, I want to say that people that say that, you know, connecting to the profession or identifying with the profession, that they should keep things separate, guys. When you're doing this job for however many hours a day, for the course of however many years, you got to have some connection to it. I stand tall every day. Say I'm proud that I work in corrections. I have seen people enter this profession because their father has done it or their mother has done it, and they stand tall. They're proud to be a correctional officer because their family member has done it. There is a connection to that, and I don't think that we should feel miserable for those hours of our day or those years of our lives because, you know, we can't connect to what we feel at that time is something meaningless. There's something great in this profession. Hopefully we could share some stories today that can help motivate us to feel that connection, find that purpose, and for once, be happy with the job you do. And remember, guys, this has nothing to do with the pay. This has nothing to do with those external incentives, the benefits. This is more about finding meaning and purpose. And again, it's a deeper dialogue. And if you're a supervisor out there or management or in leadership, listen to our words, because when we have our front line, they feel a little lost. Our job is to reconnect them. And that's where we can become true leaders. So real quick, I want to ask you guys a question before we break into our stories. I'll start with Russ first. Russ, are we losing the connection with our work? I mean, and if we are, is there a way to get it back? Why are we losing it?
One of the things that's just really happened to corrections, especially over the last few years, is, we had the big COVID scare. And the COVID scare wasn't just about the disease. It was about not knowing what was going to happen with the disease. It was about, politicians and stuff trying to mandate shots. It was about us trying to manage a scared population. A scared population is a dangerous population, and anything could happen. And then on top of that, we had so many different correctional officers and sergeants and lieutenants that were catching this thing, that had underlying conditions, and they were ending up dead over it. And so I think that was part of it, but that fed right into the problem that we already had pre-existing to that, which was the fact that we were undermanned. And I think all of that undermanning was just a confluence with COVID and the things that we went through that just kind of, took the wind out of our sails. It really, made a bad morale worse. Now, that's not to say that we can't find value in what we're doing. And that's not to say that we shouldn't, keep on trying and keep on putting the hustle in. But I think it was one of those things just badly impacted us.
And it's great that you actually talked about COVID because that is recent. And you're right, coming out of that, and we're still going through it actually. We didn't come out unscathed. We got hit pretty hard, And to be honest with you, even before COVID, we were already getting hit. So this just kind of gave momentum in the wrong direction. And then coming out of it, it's like, you know what, this is crazy, because it was crazy beforehand and now it's crazy. But the funny thing is, it kind of filtered a lot. So the people that are still standing, the people that are connected, that were there before it and afterwards, hey guys, bravo. Because not a lot of people made it through. And even people that got the job and were there briefly and left, look at you guys standing around right through the storm and continue to do afterwards. And I think that should be appreciated more. And I don't think it is as much. And what's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with Russ. I think a lot of it started with the COVID pandemic. At first it wasn't really a big deal. And when people started getting really, really sick, employees started getting hospitalized. I buried one of my sergeant and 2 COs behind COVID. And when it started to get serious, people were like, oh shit, I'm coming to work taking a chance and going to catch this thing here. And, there was a lot of people who decided that, they were going to go home, and, when we lost a part of that workforce, then it turned into short staffing and overtime and things just kind of snowball out of control. We let the ball outrun us and now, coming through the other end of that tunnel, trying to find a way to get that back and get things back to where they were pre-COVID. And it turns out it's a lot tougher than we expected, but again, if you're the type of individual like we are, that, we found value in what we did, and we found value in our jobs, that's the main thing that gets you through. You can't let everything around you scare you. If that was the case, we all be shut-ins.
Mm-hmm. And I want to mention something, guys, in case you don't know, and I said at the beginning, both Joe and Russ are retired. So to have that value after you've been gone from the profession, there has to be a connection there. And I do believe connections really start with a purpose, a greater service to others. And however it is, or whenever it is, it's recognized. For me, I got lucky. I recognized it pretty quick at the beginning of my career. Basically, I did get frustrated with, the environment I was in. Remember back in 2002, 2003, out of the academy and starting, we didn't have Facebook groups like Russ has. We didn't have books like we have out there. We didn't have these social media groups. I didn't know anybody that worked in corrections. So honestly, I didn't really know, the stuff I was watching from the media, how true that was. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I was even invested at that time. I just saw a job that, I needed benefits and a salary because working as a waiter wasn't cutting it. I had no vacation days, so I had to get something. And then when I went into this profession, it was unlike any world I've ever been in before. Now, granted, I started my career at a female facility, so I'm not going to sit there and tell you it was a war zone because it really wasn't. But I was used to being in a positive environment. This was just the opposite of that. And that could have its own set of tolls on someone's mental health and well-being, because again, you're surrounded by just negativity. Literally, it's just negativity. And it's like, well, I don't know if I could be doing this every day. Like I'm used to being happy and just living life. And now I come here and it's just negative. And yeah, you're going to get the fights. You're going to get the disrespects, the suicide attempts, the mandated overtime. And then you start sitting there like, man, you start like, I wish I was a waiter again. And then when you start thinking like, well, why are you wishing you're a waiter? Because you're definitely making more money and you have better benefits. Then you start realizing like, wow, if I'm wishing that I was a waiter again, then guess what? Does it matter? The fucking salary I'm making and the benefits I'm making. Because if I wish I could go back to being a waiter at this moment, then the problem is the reason why I got into this profession isn't strong enough. So just for my own survival, I'm home thinking like, yo, I can't be miserable here. I got to find something. And I literally remember telling myself, I have to connect to something. You know, I have to connect to something that's meaningful, because if I don't, I'm not going to make it through these 25 years. And by the way, guys, when I say connecting to something meaningful, it's not superficial in any nature. I mean, literally, it's where do I feel I can find the most meaning? Now, for me, what was unique about it all is I definitely knew, because of the person I am, that I want to help people. You know, I do within my prescribed role, of course. I always within my prescribed role, but I'm a talker. You know, and I know I like giving out advice like I'm doing right now. So believe it or not, this is always who I've been. So I took advantage of the opportunities of talking to people I wouldn't normally talk to. So when I was in the facility, if there was an issue, I had no problem being that person to talk to an inmate, give out some levels of expectations, and then seeing if the inmate was willing to find it. And then always within that prescribed role, but, you know, looking to see if I could provide advice, and then really watch the individual to see if they were taking the advice. And here was a cool test of it all too, is that you're giving out positive advice in an environment that doesn't support it. And what I mean by that is the inmate population wants just the opposite. You know, their recognition, their appreciation is for a world totally different than what we're trying to push. So being able to connect to that, and then seeing the person making the effort, and then truly becoming successful at the other end. And I would define success by them never coming back, because you really never know how successful they're going to be until they have left. I found value in that. And then as I moved up, more of that value came with the people I supervised. So the higher I went, I felt that the more chances I would have to interact with people, be a model of good behavior, and pretty much let them know, if someone like me could do it, any one of you guys could do it. I mean, that's the key. And I think for me, my greatest service to others was something I could connect to that gave me purpose. And then eventually, when I asked myself, was it all worth it? I really had strong memories of good moments that if I wasn't there, who would know what that person would be doing? So again, I connected myself to something strong. And then finally one day, and I'll be honest with you, I feel like it was recent, but I remember one day just kind of in the position I'm in now, finally asking myself, was it worth it? And with a smile on my face, I could say, yeah. And even though I got 5 years left in my career, to be honest with you, hindsight being 2020, I don't regret a day, even the bad ones, because it was the bad ones that actually made me better at what I'm doing. And the funny thing is, when Russ and Joe talked about the COVID, guys, we don't really know how good we are until we're in that rough water. So for the people that survived the rough water and now standing tall, as I said, bravo, because that's what's going to make the profession stronger. So I'm glad that we got rid of the weak ones. And I'm happy that the strong ones remain. But that's a little brief story of my connection. My connection was through the people, which eventually gave me purpose, reason why, and that has motivated me to this day to be the best I can be for this profession. And one last thing is that, guys, here's the secret tip here that I didn't have at the beginning that was developed along the way. I was able to take what I expected from myself. So my core values, I never had to change my core values. I never had to change who I was or who I needed to be. But what I did have to do is look inwards and see what are the core values that I can build a bridge with and connect to the agency's goals. So it is up to the agency to develop a vision or a mission that allows for that connection to exist. So here are my expectations. Here's a bridge. What are you going to do for me now, agency, that we can finally say that we're connected? And now I feel I'm living out a purpose. Even within the restrictions of what the agency expects, I still feel that I'm empowered and doing something of value. So again, my expectations partnered with the expectations of the agency within a beautiful written mission and vision could make for a wonderful, purposeful, and meaningful career. Again, that's just me. So I'll go to Russ first, because I know Russ, Russ, you've been connected to this profession and you've been retired for some years now. So come on, man, you got to share with us that story. I mean, why are you so connected? What is it about the profession? And why is it just, you can't even though you're retired, you never really left?
Right. So with me at the time that I decided that I was going to get into corrections, there were a lot of competing things going on with me. One of which is I just, needed a job and I wanted some benefits and stuff. And I was trying to figure out where my career was going to be. I was under the ability to, go on and work for, for Cal Fire, which back then was CDF. But to do that would have meant that, I was going to kind of be under the shadow of my dad. And I knew that I wanted to be my own person and forge my own way. And I didn't know what form that was going to take. So I ended up, taking this job with corrections, and it took a long time to get it because the background just went on and on. And then I finally got it. And I went through the academy, and I was happy. And I got to the prison, San Quentin, and wow, what a rude awakening. I mean, it was just, it was bedlam, and it was noise, and it was, it was officers against inmates, inmates against officers, officers against officers. And when you're a youngster like me, how do you eke out some meaning out of that? And so as I started to, learn things and started to develop and stuff, I kind of was starting to worry that what I was going to be is I was going to be one absolutely fantastic, adequate officer. And that didn't sit well with me. I wanted to be exceptional, but it didn't seem like I was learning anything that was going to bring me to the exceptional side of the equation. It didn't seem like this was meant for me. And what I failed to realize at that point in time is that, it takes seasoning, it takes exposure to some incidents, it takes, developing yourself and figuring out, what am I going to do? What am I going to be an expert at? And what do I have to bring to the table? And I think a part of my problem is I didn't have a way to actually articulate that in my mind. It was just, mostly emotional, and it was kind of just, abstract and not concrete. But eventually some things started to happen for me. And I'm going to share one long story and one very short story about how suddenly I started becoming enthused, because I started to figure out that, this job, this profession has meaning to it. There has to be someone that stands in the gap between the outside world and this world where we've put away all of the worst inside it. And if we're not standing watch, if we're not looking out for those people on the outside who can't deal with the stuff that we have to deal with, then, all of society is impacted badly by that. And so as I started to come to that realization, and I started to think, well, you know what, this is something I can really take pride in, I also started to make some gains with respect to my skills. And so these two things happened back to back to me in the same week. And it was the point at which I finally started to feel like I could make an impact. It started to make me feel like, I had something to really put forth with the rest of the team, and that my voice was valued. And that first thing was I was out on this yard. It was called the West Block Yard. And I was just walking. And there's like this little walkway, and there was some inmates, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of inmates on this little tiny yard. And as I started to walk by these two, one guy handed the other guy a sandwich, and there was just something in my heart that just skipped a beat. And wait a minute. And I pulled that guy back and got the sandwich, and lo and behold, there was a syringe inside of it. And I don't know what I picked up on to this day. I just know that something inside me tripped, something clicked. Some of the things that I'd been figuring out about the gangs started to make sense. Something about body language just, started to, come out in me. And I was like, that was cool. Let's do that again. Let's find out, how good I can be at this job. Unfortunately, it took me many, many, many more years to get much better at it. But that was the first time where I started to feel a connection to the job, where I started to feel like I was of service, not just to the public, but to my department, my unit as a whole. So the next thing that really cemented things for me, the next thing that just caught my attention, where it really made me stand up and take notice about what the potential of what I was doing each and every single day would eventually mean to me, was I was out there on the yard one day, and I'd been watching these gangs every single day for months and weeks and everything. And this one particular gang that always hung out next to this iron door that we had on the yard, which went into the south block, they were out there. They were all in their usual spot, except they weren't on the shadow side. They were on the sunny side of things. And something inside me at that moment in time I just knew that something really super bad was about to happen. And this was back in the day. We didn't have radios or anything like that. The only people that had radios was the officer that was in the south block, so he could blow his whistle and get people to respond. And the guy up in the tower had a radio, but I was down on the yard. I didn't have anything. And so all I could do was I started to circle back around where those inmates couldn't see me and wave to the guy up in the tower and hope none of the other inmates said anything, and hustle across that little divide and come out there and peek around. And all of a sudden, I mean, all hell started to break loose, because the gunner up in the thing, he started shouting, "Get down," as I blew my whistle. And we got everybody down. I had my baton drawn. I thought the one guy was going to rush me. I shoved him up against the wall and managed to turn him over and get him down on the ground to handcuff him. And everybody else came out from the other side. And all told, we ended up cuffing up 7 people, and we ended up having 9 weapons right there in that little spot. And so there I was, this was, I mean, an absolute thrill. I made the read, I looked out there, I could see down the field, I could see where all my receivers were, I could tell, who had my back, so to speak, bringing a little football analogy into it. I was able to get people to respond from the other side, and we were able to stop a violent, murderous gang from carrying out an assassination on that day, in that spot, in that time. And then it was from that point forward that, I thought, what? Maybe I'm meant to do something in this field. Maybe I'm not going to be just an adequate officer. Maybe I'm not just going to be destined to be one of those guys that shows up and raises his hand and says, "Hey, me too," on everything. Maybe I can take the lead on some things, and maybe I can be that impact player that's always there making every play that I can possibly make. And so that was the thing that cemented in me, this whole idea about me connecting to my job and seeing myself as an asset, not just someone who's there for the ride, but someone who's actually able to contribute in a meaningful way.
And did that inmate ever thank you? Because he could have accidentally ate that syringe. Hey, Russ, I want to ask you.
I'm thinking he was pretty sure that he knew that it was in there.
No, I'm joking. I know. Hey, Russ, I want to ask a question though. I know we're using the word connecting now, but did you think of it that way back then?
I would say I probably wouldn't have necessarily used the word connect, but I know the way that I started to think of it that time is that I felt that I was, taking up and taking on the mantle of what my authority was, the authority given to me by the penal code, how my department, trusted me by virtue of the fact that, I had finished the academy and done all of the training I was supposed to do. And so that was the way that I viewed it, that I was taking up that mantle of authority, and I was going to try and fill things out and, really take on that authority in a good way, that I mean, to be able to make those plays, make those impacts, and do those things that, I was later able to do.
Yeah, I love that, guys. And to be honest with you guys, if you notice, it still comes out when we do our videos, because anytime I want to ask or do a video about searching or, discovering contraband or whatever it is, you got to have Russ in it, because Russ will be calling you every second, like, "Hey, when we doing that video, when we doing video." So you're still connected. And I do believe the passion comes from, that is your area of giftedness. I mean, I wish, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but I wish agencies or departments sometimes they take the time to understand the people they lead and find out where those areas of giftedness are and try their best to put those people there. Because when you get people that, have those areas of giftedness, whether it's searching or communicating, whatever it is, they start to feel needed, and the environment itself is helping them meet that need, and they wind up enjoying their career because they're doing what they love. And a lot of people say, well, you have to work on your weaknesses, not to the point where you jeopardize really cultivating the strengths of an individual, because I know that one scenario in my book I have is, a duck is a good swimmer. Now, I could spend time teaching the duck how to climb a tree, but he's never going to be the best at climbing a tree. All I'm doing is taking away the time that I can make that duck a better and possibly the best swimmer. So again, you want to also, I know you want to teach people, make them all roundabout. I get it, but don't neglect their strengths. Like, okay, you know enough about searching. Let's go ahead and teach you to do this. It's like, yeah, but hold on, guys. I mean, that person's strength can help others who want to meet that. So again, knowing your areas of giftedness is a way for a good supervisor to start building a really good, strong team, instead of trying to get people that are like, I may not be the best at that, so let's focus time in building that. Yeah, but in the process I'm doing that, I'm not having the chance to cultivate the real skills I want. And just to give you a little bit more of a sort of a more real example with that too, my daughter right now, we're tutoring her. She's not really the best at math, but she loves art. That's her thing. She loves art, but math is killing her. So we're making sure, yes, we're going to give her, some tutoring with the math, but we're making sure it doesn't pull her that far away from the art, because at the end, this is what she loves to do. And I think she has a talent for it. And I get, we're going to teach her math. Don't get me wrong. We'll be fair with it. But the last thing I want to do is do it to the point where she can't even touch the art anymore, because that's where her true passion is. So again, there's a balance there, but I think that's a great story, Russ. And I have another question I'll ask after we hear Joe's story, because just some more generalized questions, but I want to hear Joe. Now, Joe, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, was a lieutenant. Joe, do you mind kind of sharing with us that moment when you felt connected to this profession and still do?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you first sign on for corrections after you get through the academy, and you get assigned to your first facility, everybody goes through that phase of awkwardness. You're second guessing yourself. You really don't know the layout. You don't know the policies and procedures yet. So you're still kind of feeling your way around, feeling kind of awkward. For me, thank God, when I came in, I had a lot of older hands that were there. I remember distinctly my third week in the system, I witnessed my first homicide where a guy got gutted out on a rec yard. And I seriously contemplated, man, is this for me? And this was after coming out of the Army and being a sheriff's deputy. I signed on, of course, like everybody else did, because the money was good back then and had benefits. And so I decided, my friend talked me into it, so I tried it. And I think my aha moment came for me was, feeling my way around. I was trying to learn things. I was trying to do things, get as much under my belt. And, Russ said it better. You spend your first weeks, working a cell block day in, day out. That's all you see, cell block day in, day out. And, what I did not know in the back of my mind was that's my supervisors testing me to make sure that I can handle that cell block. And if I can handle that cell block, then I'm ready for more responsibility. And, they had a gradual program, unwritten rule that, once you were able to maintain a cell block, then you got to run a dorm. When you ran a dorm and did that successfully, then they put you in an outside picket with weapons. And if you did that successfully, then, you got to work a radio picket, or you got to work a back gate, or you got to work center hall, or what they call a searcher's desk, like a main rotunda. And, there were several times where I second guessed myself and actually thought about quitting. But, back then we had a bunch of good old hands that, they were very good at picking up people's spirits and saying, hey, man, it's just a process. You're doing good. Stay with it. You're going to make a jam up person. You're going to make a jam up supervisor one day. And, for me, my aha moment came during a riot that we had in the chow hall. Back then we had metal trays, and, they were used as weapons quite commonly. And I remember there was 4 of us standing in this chow hall, and I seen all the signs that something was fixing to kick off. And I had 2 female officers with me, and there was a male that was upstairs. Because back then, when with the custody, they had a what they call a catwalk above the chow hall with gas ports, where you could shoot gas anytime you needed to. But as things were kicking off, I was able to successfully push the 2 females out of the chow hall and secure the doors, and radioed for help and was kind of giving a description of what I was seeing, what was going on and stuff. And when it was said and done, my lieutenant came to me. He said that was probably one of the best call outs I've ever heard in my life. You were descriptive. We knew what equipment we needed. We knew what personnel we needed. We knew where we needed them. And it was kind of then at that point was, crap, man, I think I found my niche. It doesn't come from, big things. It could be small things. It just happened to be that day that I was able to keep 2 females from possibly getting assaulted. And I was able to give clear direction for, responding staff and bring the assets that they needed. And, when I went home that night, that's kind of when it kind of hit me that I think that's when I found my calling. I knew I was connected at that point. And from there on, my responsibilities grew because my shift supervisors knew I could handle it. Even, to the point where they were mentoring me to start going up for the steps in rank. And, once I knew and seen that, in my mind, I knew I found my place. My place was there at that unit with my people, with my team. And I looked to them just as much as they looked to me. And that's when I knew right then and there, I had my connectivity and I found my calling. And, a lot of people, when they go up for rank like me, I went up for lieutenant. Now, don't get me wrong. I put in for captain several times, didn't get it. Not a big deal. I'm telling you, being a lieutenant for almost 25 years was the best job I ever had. I think about my people all the time, and that's the reason why I stay involved with Tier Talk. I stay involved with the corrections. I still get calls for advice from other lieutenants, and I'm telling you, once you're in the profession, it's hard to shake. It doesn't matter how long you've been retired or how long you've done the job. And, I don't regret a minute of it, man. Not 1 minute. You just gotta be able to find your own way, find your niche. And, for supervisors, for incoming employees, you always want to exploit the strengths, but, you definitely want to define and work on the weaknesses too, because that's what helps you help them find their connectivity.
Yeah,
So.
You know what, Joe? What's great about your story? You made me think of something too. So I've always believed, I think part of my calling, and it kind of crossed into Tier Talk here, is being a voice for the voiceless, because I felt that the officers or staff were very misunderstood, and that's what kind of led to this, be honest with you, and then led to, me been doing this now for over a decade now. So, I mean, when you brought the calling, I'm thinking like, you know what, you guys have such impactful stories. And I wanted to kind of, let people know that I also, when it comes for the people, I do feel that, having a voice for them also matters. I felt that being in this profession, because I connected to the work we do and I saw what the work was that was being done, very good, honest work. And when people would bastardize it, I literally would take it personally. I remember a toll collector story where the guy was just an asshole, and I was so connected to the profession that I wind up writing that article of yes, corrections is law enforcement, correctional officers is law enforcement, and then eventually doing the show because I knew the truth. And the funny thing is, if I didn't have that connection to the profession, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing at all because I wouldn't care. I would laugh when people are making fun of the profession. And this, don't get me wrong, guys. I know what a joke is. I'm okay with joking around and calling us guard once in a while because, you know, it depends on where it's coming from. And it depends on the intent of the joke. But sometimes I know it's not a joke. Sometimes I know it's just people that don't understand and they're bastardizing and they know when they're losing an argument, let's make it personal. Let's do this. And it's like, you know what? Screw you. And I think for some reason, the connection to the profession has put me into this position because I really feel that people are wrong. And when they attack the profession, they're attacking me personally. And is that healthy? We can argue that all day, but I'm happy because I know when to balance it. I mean, that's the key, but I'm happy. I'm not miserable. I'm happy, you know, and my family knows I love what I do. They're just as passionate because I'm passionate. And plus I'm teaching my family something, you know, I'm teaching the girls that, you know, because this is a tough profession to be in, but that doesn't mean you can't be happy. And I want to mention something that all our stories, we share another word in common, the word intentional. We made our careers intentional when we found that connection, because most of the people that may find misery in this profession could be because they're passive. They're passive and they hope that things will come around and they just take shit as it is without making any intention to step up and look for something good. And when we talk about positive, and we've talked about this in the past, positive isn't always about shifting reality. It's about shifting your perspective. You know, think about the two things that Russ and Joe were just saying. You know, they could have kept that in the negative, but they found a way to make that moment something positive. So shifting to the positive is intentional. And then connect that with realistic optimism. You know, yeah, COVID was bad, but we'll be okay tomorrow. And for the people that stuck by COVID and made it through the other end, I will guarantee you, most of them found some level of optimism that motivated them, saying, hey, guys, I know it's tough. And if you have good leaders right now and they were going through those tough times, you know there were people out there saying, as a good leader, guys, just got to get through today. That's it. You know, you got to get through today. And I think those are two strong words. You know, besides being intentional, but being positive and optimistic. And guys, we have one other person that's going to share their story of purpose. Let me just introduce her because today, guys, we did do the show late, and she was watching a Shaquille O'Neal documentary, which is bound to put you to sleep. And I believe that's what happened. But she texts me and says, hey, are you guys still doing your show? And I said, yes. She goes, I'm so sorry. I was watching a Shaq documentary. I was like, well, I'm sorry too then. You know what I mean? I'd be sorry for that too. But let's get her to introduce herself so we can hear her story of purpose. And guys, this is the Connie like you've never seen before. So get ready for this because she just woke up. And she says, I'm going to look like shit, which is impossible. It's Connie. But yeah, I know. That's a bunch of, when we say we look like shit, that's our best day. You know what I mean?
I do it to set the expectation low so I can beat it.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, hold on. Let's get her in. Hold on. Connie!
Oh my God. Hi, everybody.
Oh, you look like shit, Connie.
Listen, I completely know the Shaq documentary actually wasn't bad, but I was like, I don't know. I think I can hold on. I was trying. I'm
Connie,
sorry.
he's not watching this. You could be honest. I don't think Shaq's interested in our dialogue.
Oh my God.
Hey, Connie, real quick, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Connie Alleyne. I am the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm also the host of The Fly Behind the Wall, and I am the author of The Cage with Sir Cocoon. And I'm sorry to my panelists for joining you guys late. You know, I tried. I was hanging in there. But I jumped up and I was like, no, they got to still be on. You couldn't have. This can't be in vain. I was trying.
You did it. And then it's weird. And you text me in this ungodly hour. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Hey, so just to catch up, because I do have some follow-up questions after you share your story. But basically, we're talking about when we realized a connection to this profession, because basically times were tough, especially now, especially through COVID, whatever it is, and how important it is to have that connection for that purpose and that why. So I was wondering if you would have a story that can highlight when you realize that connection through the toughest of times and how that motivated you to continue moving forward.
Sure. For me, I think it was just very clearly defined. So there was a point where I was discharge planner. I hadn't gone into the management space as of yet. And Rikers Island was actually just very dangerous at the time. We did have like good officers, but the requirement of our court order, like because the program was based as a response to a court order, Brad H. discharge planning, was that we needed to go into the mental health observation unit to actually do work with the population there. And a staff person was attacked. And then you got staff that decided they just weren't going into the unit at all. And at the time, I was actually a union delegate. And I remember having to go and talk to the sort of our management of the program, and then be a part of some of the union arbitration discussions. And it was in that moment that I could see where management was coming from and just our obligation to this court order, but I could also see where the staff was coming from. And I think being able to bring those conversations to the table that was meaningful in a way that was meaningful, but was also going to be accepted by our leadership was something that was like almost monumentous, because nobody wanted to hear that we weren't going into the unit, right? Like whatever the justifications were, there would be security measures put in place to make sure that we were safe. They just needed us to go in and do our jobs. But I think being able to bring sort of the management perspective to our leadership and then sort of translate management expectations to my colleagues really made a difference. And it was in that moment that I remember thinking to myself, this is something you should probably be doing, right? Like it felt good to be able to almost serve as that liaison that could see objectively what the expectations were, what the drawbacks were. I felt the fears that they felt. So it wasn't like, I'm a manager, so I'm so disconnected from what they were actually feeling. Like I knew what that felt like. And I think it was being able to express that in a way that was received well by the management team as well as sort of the union, because at the time we were 1199 and they're a really strong union. And I think getting the point across, and at the time I didn't necessarily know how to sort of navigate the politics of union management and corrections, but I ended up learning it firsthand through this experience. And I began to feel like, so if there wasn't sort of a you, where do we kind of bridge the gap? Where do we make sure that the staff are safe? How do we make sure that management, our leadership, understands the staff perspective? And like being silent was no longer an option. So when the leadership role became available and they offered it to me, I was like, absolutely. Because now I could take what I knew and what I learned firsthand on the front line and be able to use it in a way with my leadership team who hadn't worked in facilities and really didn't have a good perspective on just how important it was for the staff to feel safe.
I think I love what you're saying, because like I relate to your story a lot, because there is a voice that's needed, especially more now than ever. I don't think there was a voice before. And I think as we have evolved, if we want to evolve in a way that's more balanced, you got to have that voice from the front line being moved up, because that's the only way this system is going to balance itself out, because we've done a lot of top-down management and it doesn't work. It doesn't bring investment. It doesn't bring balance, and then, I think that this has been a time where now, as we evolve and as we move forward, I think we're starting to realize that we need that voice from the front line. I think that, again, that's sort of why I do what I do. It's sort of why Connie comes on the show, Russ. I mean, to be honest with you, all of us here, we also find a purpose in being that voice, because there are people that can't speak and there are people that need to hear what has to be said. Now, Connie, one of the questions I asked at the beginning of the show, and I thought maybe you could touch on it real quick before I ask the other questions, was I asked Russ and Joe at the beginning, why is it so important, especially now, to feel that connection, to feel that this career has meaning and purpose with whatever capacity you serve in? I mean, why is it so important now to really express and feel that connection?
So the connection is important because right now, when things are tough, like, it's easy to quit, right? It's easy to get disheartened and to be able to, like, not see the value because you don't feel like you're necessarily being heard. Sometimes, like, I think some of the external pressures can be a lot. I think dealing with some of these newer issues that are happening in facilities can be a lot, and it can be very overwhelming. And so if you don't have some deeper connection that's going to keep you motivated, keep you engaged, keep you interested to even fight the fight, then you're sooner to walk away or kind of just throw your hands up, right? Like, and I can imagine if you're not feeling connected, some level of complacency just creeping in, right? Or indifference, maybe that's a better word, right? Kind of like, well, whatever. And so you have to stay connected, because that also ties to your own personal safety, right? The moment you start slipping, the moment you start seeing some things happening around you that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I love what you said too, because as we, what's, guys, was a very good perspective here, is as we push connection for that service to others eventually, there is a reason for connection for survival too. Because again, like Connie said, without that feeling of connection, I mean, are you that really involved or invested in the job that you're doing? What's your thoughts on that, Russ? I'll go with you first, and Joe, because that's an interesting perspective.
Can you say that again?
Well, I love what Connie mentioned about being connected. Now, when we were talking about being connected, we connected that to our service of others, but then Connie put a little twist on that. Connie said also that connection also helps us do the job the way it's supposed to be done, to be invested and basically sort of survival too.
Yeah, one of the things in corrections, maybe it's, one of the problems in corrections is just the fact that we have so many people that, they haven't maybe taken that step into commitment, right? In order to connect, you have to commit. You have to decide that this is what I am going to do, and I'm going to do it exceptionally. Not that I'm gonna show up and people are going to tell me where to go and what to do and how to handle my business. And then, I'm going to just, hands off as soon as I get off, and I'm just going to go home. There has to be a buy-in and a dedication from staff that we are going to get out there, do the job that needs to be done, do it in an exceptional manner, and that we're not going to be, stuck in this endless rut of, hatred and pessimism with everything about corrections. You can see lots of what I call sad sacks out there. They're not happy with their supervisor. They're not happy with administration. They're not happy with the politicians. They're not happy with some new consent decree that's come down the pike. I think that's something that Connie made reference to there with regards to some kind of court order. And the list can go on, and we can endlessly talk about that list, or we can get in there and put our nose to the grindstone and get some things accomplished. One of the big things that I'm a huge proponent of is just doing just that, is getting in there and making a difference, making an impact play. Am I going to always carry the day? Probably not. But you know what? The next shift that comes on, or the next person that uses me as an example, uses me as a role model to get in there, maybe they're going to make a little bit of an impact. And when we make thousands of impacts and tens of thousands of impacts and hundreds of thousands of impacts, we start to move the arc of that bad asteroid, as it were, that's coming toward us, and we're able to move it off and actually make progress in what we're doing. So I think that's where it lies. There's no one of us that can do it alone, but all of us, Connie, Joe, you, me, other people that appear on the show all the time, we can move the markers a little bit, and that's all the further that we have to go. But there's other people that are going to come along and help us do that. The problem is right now is too many people are just too invested in that negativity. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And you know what, though? You and Connie brought up something, and I want to bring it up here. When it comes to connection equates to commitment, you know what's funny? When I was talking about connection recently, someone had mentioned that they felt it to be unhealthy, kind of like similar to identifying too much with the profession. And we will come back and say, well, there's a balance here because I'm proud of this profession. I do identify with it. And I think you gave a very good argument that I didn't think of the time, you and Connie, which is, I don't want to overlook this. Connection equates to commitment. So for the people that say that connection is unhealthy, I wonder if, and again, this may be something we could explore later on, but I wonder if their unwillingness to connect to the profession does ultimately lead to less commitment. What's your thoughts on that, Joe? That's a very, I think that's a unique thought.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. If there's no connection, you got no commitment. Without commitment, what do you have after that? Connection is the one thing that tied two people together, or you and a group of people together. You got to have that connection. It's a must. Connection ain't, I guess you could look at it as something that ties two people together, and hell, they're both trying to survive. The employees surviving to find their way, and as a supervisor, you're surviving trying to get your group to come together. So connection is a must. That's why, supervision, you have to be able to invest yourself in your staff, and you have to invest in your staff. Without some sort of investment in your staff, you don't get any returns. So you're really not doing yourself justice. And, everybody's been a supervisor and many different places, and everybody knows that you've had that one person who likes to sit off in the corner by themselves. They don't really socialize. They don't really raise their hand to answer questions when you ask them and that kind of stuff. And those are the people I like to connect with the most, because those are the ones I like to get out of their shell. And if you can get somebody like that out of their shell and make them part of the team, that's a commitment you'll have for life. Connection between two people or you and a group of people is just an awesome thing, especially when you guys you get everything fine tuned and you start clicking.
Yeah. And what's funny is I can't believe I didn't think of that before. And I love the fact that you guys brought that out, because, that is an argument. And sometimes when I have the dialogue, I would think, like, I don't want, when I would say connection, I was, you always got to prepare for what other people may think. Usually the naysayers. It's usually the naysayers. And the one thing is that when I would say connection, they would think, well, overcommitment or over identifying. But when you think about it, guys, and kind of this is why it's good we have these dialogues and let them evolve, is if you're not connected, then you're not invested. And in corrections, you have to be invested. I mean, that's just what the job demands every day. So it does demand that level of connection. And the funny thing is, maybe that's why sometimes we stand on extremes. We have people that are extremely connected, and we have people that are just disenfranchised. And I get the fact that, yes, we're going through these tough times. And like Connie said before, spot on, it's just easier to quit. But this profession doesn't allow you to do that, because they have that quiet quitting. You can't quiet quit in corrections. The moment you do, the fucking jail or the prison gets lost, so you have to, I think you have to commit. You have to connect, because it really does depend on what you guys brought up, is the survival aspect. So for people that say, yo, screw this profession, and they're working it, by the way, and I just don't identify, or I'm not going to connect, I would actually, as their partner, say, well, I better be very careful of the work you're doing now. Because if you don't feel connected, then I don't feel that you're invested in the job. So maybe there's really not a choice here. If that makes any sense. I think this will be enough for a whole nother dialogue, but definitely something we could start the discussion now. You're working with someone that doesn't feel that they connect to the profession. My question would be is, what type of work you giving then? Are you giving us 110%, or are you literally disenfranchised? Because at this point, I'm relying on you. And I think as a partner, I think, and was discovered by you guys today, I think I'm relying on you to be connected to this profession. Does anybody want to have a thought on that before I go to that next question? Are we all in agreement? Or I would love maybe one more round of this, just to kind of.
I'll jump in there real quick. I might be the poster child for overcommitment and over idealization, or something along those lines, because of the length of my career and the fact that I retired, and then I went back and I retired again, and then I went back and did the retired annuitant thing again at a different facility, and now I'm in the same thing, although now I'm not doing the law enforcement side. I'm doing the reentry and rehabilitation. But all along the way, one way or another, I'm fascinated with it. And, it's a love relationship for me. Not every day is wonderful, and not everything is roses and unicorns and rainbows. But by the same token, I love what I do, and I love what I've been able to accomplish. And I take a great deal of a sense of pride in that. So is that unhealthy? For me, it's not. I realize not everybody is going to be as enthused, perhaps, as I am. But if you took your level up a notch or two, you might enjoy the ride for as long as it's going to take you to get to your retirement or wherever it is that you think that you're headed.
I love that. Russ. And you know what's funny? When you get the people right now that could be so frustrated of the negative, I would literally say this, and I know it sounds simplistic, but please bear with me, because again, it's up to you to apply it, but change where you're looking. I think that's a good advice for people that are in this profession and only see the negative. Just change where you're looking, because I know there's positive there. And I think it matters now that you guys brought up this dialogue. I think it matters that you look and find something positive, because I think now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I want to relate to, I think it's our duty and our service to others to stay connected to this profession. I know it may sound extreme, but the way we spelled it out and the consequences for not, again, it's still a healthy balance. Bear with me. But when you say that you're staying connected to this profession, remind yourself of what you're staying connected to and why those reasons exist. And I think that literally, for people that aren't feeling that connection, you got to do what you can to get connected, make the effort. Don't allow that to be the norm. Connie, again, you brought this up, Connie, but I mean, think about this, Connie. I actually think, just in alignment with you and then partner with what Russ said about the, this kind of compliment on the survival part, I actually think having that connection is a necessity from the commitment to the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think a level of introspection and self-awareness is critical. That way, when you think about how committed you are or aren't, you're also beginning to make conscious decisions as to what your priorities are going to be. And if this is a commitment that you're going to work up to, right? As opposed to, I'm just going to show up and just be present. So I think there's a level of understanding how committed you're going to be and understanding the impact that your lack of commitment and connection is going to have on not only yourself and your performance, but what impact it's going to have on the operation.
Yeah, and Joe, could I get maybe a thought on that before I go to the last question? Because I know I see you in agreement. I mean, would let me ask you a question. You were a supervisor, wanted to get the team together. Would you believe, or I'm saying, would you, if you had to talk to your team, and let's say you felt the team wasn't feeling connected, do you feel that it would be your job as a supervisor to reinforce that connection to the work that they're doing, so you can develop that level of commitment needed to be successful in the day's work?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. You gotta have that level of commitment for your people, and they have to have that level of commitment to you, because if not, then you got nothing that connects you to them and nothing that connects them to you. So being committed and being invested in your people is a priority. I mean, that has to happen first before you can lead them truly, because number one, it lets them know that you're committed to them and you're invested in them. Therefore, they have a reason to be committed and loyal and invested, in you. So, yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Connie says, because, like she was talking about basically what we used to call, I'm just going to do my 8 and hit the gate. Those are the people the radar would just hone in on them. And, those are the ones I would go for first. And, once you have a workforce, or you have a shift with those mentality style people that, I'm just going to do my 8 and hit the gate. And when you finally get them to commit, and the rest of the workforce sees, the one that's been the hard ass for 20 years, and I just do my 8 and hit the gate, and all of a sudden, you've turned him into a workhorse for not just himself, but for you and the team. That starts promoting positive change, and it's our job to promote that positive change, not the negative. We promote positive change in behavior and offenders every day. Why the hell shouldn't we do that for, somebody, on our own team?
Right. And you know what, guys, with that context in mind, as we go into this last round of questions, with that context in mind, that actually puts responsibility on both the frontline employee and the management to seek that connection. But I would actually go as far as saying it puts a little more effort on the front line, because again, we're crossing into survival mode now, and basically the fact that you are accountable to your brothers and sisters that work behind that wall. So I know that the agency, does foolish things, but you have to fight to stay connected to keep that commitment, because lives depend on it. So, I mean, yes, and we'll get to it. I mean, within this context here, yes, management, step up, make it easy for those people to connect. But when it's not, frontline, you have to step up now and play your part, because of the consequences of that failure to connect leads to lack of commitment. Lack of commitment is a security concern. So again, management ease the road, but when the road is tough, frontline step it up. I don't mean to be aggressive with it, but on those terms, yes. I mean, because the consequences are no joke. Lack of connection equals lack of a commitment. I don't understand why I never connected that before, because we've had dialogues like this before, and I've always said it's hard to express my feelings about identifying with the profession, because you get the naysayers who are worried about mental health and you can't separate. Okay. But now to think about it from that perspective, that lack of connection is going to definitely lead to lack of commitment. And if you guys think otherwise out there, tell me how it doesn't. If you're not connected to the profession, I find it very hard to believe that you're giving it 110%. I do. And again, if you're not connected, you don't have the commitment, then you're not producing the outcomes because you don't care. And that goes right back to the beginning of the circle, the connection. I don't care. So therefore, I don't care. I'm not committed. That's great. Now, speaking of that, and in the context, the last question, and I'll do ladies first. Kind of complement what we I was just discussing now. I mean, so now with that in mind, what you guys said, the connection leads to commitment, which ultimately leads to what I feel are the outcomes that we need to be successful. how much of that is management's responsibility, percentage wise or whatever, however you want to express it. And then now with this new thought, how much of that now is frontline? You also, based on the context of this dialogue, you also have to be intentional with finding that connection for that commitment. What's your thoughts, Connie? Just want to really round this up.
I mean, as management, we can motivate people, right? We can try to incentivize people, but ultimately, as the worker, I'm the one who has to actually buy in, right? I'm the one who has to commit. I'm the one who has to make the job, my role, the things that I'm responsible for. I have to make them a priority, right? And I have to bring that effort. I have to bring that focus. I have to bring that intensity to the table, right? Like, because I feel like, that yes, management, they do have to almost kind of set the stage, right? Set the backdrop for all these wonderful things to be able to happen and for folks to be engaged. But there's a level of, I just got to bring it, right? And I don't know that your manager can make you see the importance, right? Like we can talk about it all day long, right? But if I personally don't see how I connect here, if I personally don't see why my job or my role is meaningful, I'm never going to fully be connected. And there's really not much a manager can tell me to make me be connected. It's not until I have some sort of experience in this space that gives me my aha moment that I will then decide, like, I got to do this. If I didn't do this, look what could have happened. There's something that I think happens to us while we're in the course of just working in this space, that we figure out, like, I'm either in it or I'm not, right? And for many people, I've talked to many staff that are like, I'm already 12 years in, it's too late for me, right? Like I don't know. Sometimes I question, have we structured the system in a way that, I don't know, sort of allows for this disengagement to happen, right? Because and is there some other way that we could be structuring the system so that when people get to this point of like disenfranchisement or what have you, that we don't make it so difficult for them to leave, right? Because them staying isn't helping us either.
Ooh, that you guys, we gotta have to wind up doing a whole nother show on this, because I really do think, I mean, I still want to continue with the dialogue to finish it up, but we got to do a whole show on this. I read a book recently called Impact Players. I was looking for it. I have it here, but I also have it on Kindle. I usually buy the hardcover and then the Kindle version. Impact Player was one of the first books that I read that actually put the effort on frontline as well. Like, you could have great leadership, but a frontline also doesn't want to meet leadership and what those expectations are. Then, like Connie said, maybe it's at a point where, we're making the effort, but you're just holding us back. And that's tough for people to hear, because I know people are used to pointing the finger and looking for something to blame. And the last thing they want to do is look at themselves to see if they're part of the problem. And I honestly feel right now, with this brought up, believe it or not, guys, I think this is something pioneered that matters. I think you can have a whole class on this. That's how powerful it is. But I actually think it gets to the point now where, for all these people who don't want to connect and they come up with these superficial reasons related to their feelings towards the agency, but they still work at the job, kind of relating to that quiet quitting shit that we got going on. But having said that, I think as a frontline professional, that you can't allow that to happen. You have to fight even harder, because the moment you lose that connection, the commitment goes with it. And again, I would love to see if there was someone that would ever want to come on and challenge that, saying, I don't feel connected to this job, but I'm 100% committed. I don't think they can coexist. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on this? So we got the management's perspective, pushing effort to get their people encouraged and connected to the job. But are we giving management 100% that they have to do it? Or because after talking about this dialogue, guys, I know this is crazy. Because of the consequences, which is a lot different than every other environment, I would give management 25%, because I really need frontline automatic, even if management is the culprit behind it all. And we could fix. Hopefully, we could fix that. But the point is, I still feel that the front line, because of survival, like you guys said, has to be up on their game regardless. Because if you're not connected, you're not committed, and that puts a lot of responsibility on the front line, even if they are working in a negative environment. Russ, what's your thoughts? Management versus front line. I mean, would you agree to that? Is it hard? But
so here's what I think. This is the one and only thing that I would really desire for management, and that's to give me what I need to focus so that I can devote, my talents and my attention to the things that I need to do out there. Unfortunately, some managers, some administrators, and their constituent parts, they do this thing where they make you unable to focus. They don't give you enough rest time. They don't give you the laws, the policies, the procedures that you need to instill discipline amongst the yards and units out there. They don't give you the amount of backup that you need. And so all of that breaks down into that one word for me over and over again, which is focus. Allow me to focus on the things that I need to do, not place that focus elsewhere, worrying about whether or not, administration has my back, worried about, what's the next crazy thing that they're going to come up with making us do that's going to take my eye off of the ball. So give me that ability to focus, the resources I need to focus, and the tools that I need to be able to, carry out the mission.
hey, Russ, let me ask you a question. If frontline, let's say at one point, feels that management is not connected to them or not committed to them, should that give frontline an excuse to not be connected or committed to the profession if the outcome of that could lead to a more dangerous environment?
No, it doesn't give them the excuse, but the result's the same. You see what I'm saying is that I don't believe it's an excuse for you to just, you know what, we're just going to kick back and we're going to keel over. But what administration does with regards to that, the result is going to be that, because you're not going to have, I love all my brothers and sisters. Not everyone's created equally, right? There's going to be people that are going to stay in the go get 'em mode. But many of them, most of them, almost all of them are going to get to a point where they can't face it anymore. And so whether we call that an excuse or a justification, that's maybe for someone else to decide. But the result of that's still going to be the same.
Can I give you a quick scenario? Because as we're saying this scenario is coming to my head, Russ. Let me just give you this quick scenario. Officers writing charges. The charges are constantly getting beat. Maybe administration's throwing them out for whatever reason. So the officer decides that I'm going to stop writing charges. I'm going to stop feeling committed to writing these charges. What would you tell that officer?
Okay, so that's difficult because on the base level, there's always a part of us that's going to say, "You're right. You're absolutely right. Just quit writing charges." So is it basically the end result is going to be the same because apparently they're not paying attention to it. So what I say to an officer like that is we have to find a different way to attack it. We have to find a way to make those charges stick, or we have to find a way to make sure that they're given no other choice but to come down with a penalty on those charges. One of the things that I did when I had really rather recalcitrant people hearing my charges and so forth was that I would do things a little bit outside of the box, but mostly my reports were so tight that I gave them no choice because we had reviews on those things. And when the amount of evidence that I would present in any given case would get heard, there would be no choice but to find that individual guilty. I did other things, maybe I shouldn't have, but I would write that individual into the report somehow. If an inmate told me, well, I'm just going to have Lieutenant Smith is just going to dismiss this anyway. Okay. And the inmate said, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Lieutenant Smith can't hear that charge anymore. So sometimes we have to become creative. I didn't want to go off on that tangent, but you kind of forced me into it. There are better ways to make people see the alternative options. Sometimes I think we need to be out there and talking to admin and saying, hey, you want us to instill discipline in this unit, in this yard, in this facility, but you're not giving us the things that we need to be able to do so we can focus on what our mission is.
Yeah, and the key is, and guys, we've had this discussed in our channel before. That's not the first time we've asked that question. My advice towards that question would always be keep writing the charges, because you have to still do that job. You still have to remain committed, regardless of the outcome. I mean, the thing is more about the process. So I think that was a good.
Can I add something to what Russ said?
Yeah, of course.
Because I think, to Russ's point, your level of commitment is going to push you to find a way to make it work, right? Like, if you are committed to that process, you're going to reread the policy. You're going to make sure that everything that you've documented is tight, because you want to make sure that it does stick, because you want to make sure that if the inmate is saying whatever, those details are included. So I think that those things are actually connected. That here's this one who, they're writing, and, they're like, nothing's going to stick. But like, when you are committed to the process, you're committed to the job, you're committed to what you believe in, right? You believe that this inmate presents a danger, a vulnerability, they're a risk. So because I'm committed to making sure that this sticks, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to make that happen. And I think Russ's point of, well, I got to get creative, right? I got to think about, what other ways are we going to deal with those people who may be a little difficult in this space, who are going to be reviewing the charges.
Right. And Connie, you're on fire, man, because the Russ's comment on the creativity or maybe even being innovative is really commitment. It's exactly what you said. It's full circle. Russ literally got right into that answer by diving into a greater commitment to make sure that the charges are complete. Because even though Russ first said, you don't want to tell the person to stop doing it, because I've always disagreed with that. And it is easier for them to stop doing that because, again, they're focused on the outcome. But I would be annoying with the process, because I know what I have to do, and now you're stopping me from doing it. So I honestly think at that point there, if you think about it now, management is responsible, guys. I'm not negating that. 100% management should make things easier. But there are certain times where the front line, when management doesn't want to make it easier, like Russ said, maybe not give the resources, whatever it is, then the front line cannot accept that as defeat. They're not in a position to do that. That means that they got to make up for whatever it is that's not being provided. So if you have management that's not connected or not committed at any level, then the front line's got to step up to meet that 100%, because if not, their survival depends on that. I think that's 100%. The balance is always going to be, I would love to see management and front line, and we're 100% committed. But when management's here, then, like Russ said before, then fucking front line, you got to go over there, because at the end of the day, your lack of connection, your lack of commitment, the only person that's going to be hurt by that are you and the people that work around you. So I don't think you have a choice to have that, whatever we want to talk about, that quiet quitting or whatever it is. Hey, Joe, a lot here, man. I mean, but what's your thoughts? I mean, would you agree with this? Because this is definitely a pioneer discussion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and my thought process on this whole thing is, I think it should be a 60-40 relationship. I think management owns 60% of being committed and connected to your staff. And, I think it should be the front line having the 40% to buy into it. Like I said, every day I go into a shift brief, and it's my responsibility to go in there and sell that dream and make them buy into it. It's my responsibility to keep them engaged, not the other way around. So, we don't need to fool ourselves there. I've always been in the process. The thought of mine is, if you don't have commitment and connection, what comes next? Complacency and then carnage. If you don't keep them engaged, you don't stay committed to your people, and you don't find a way to help them stay committed to you, then comes complacency. And hearing the recent tragedies that we've seen from escapes and everything else, the Vicky White issue, complacency leads to carnage. It happens all the time, and it's happening more so in the last few years than it ever has historically. So, I think it's management's job to be the 60% to keep the people engaged. And I think frontline, ought to meet them, if not halfway, most of halfway. Because if you don't keep them engaged, at some point you're going to lead your facility, or you're going to lead your people to complacency. And, in our profession, it doesn't matter if we're in security, if we're in medical, we're in classification, it does not matter. At some point it's going to lead to somebody getting hurt. And that's the last thing.
Hey, Joe, you know what's funny? I in corrections, I guess because the severity of the consequences of not having a committed force. I mean, even in classification, not doing your job there, not being committed. I know when you read a lot of books, it does express the importance of leadership, and saying that if leadership is not committed, they're not going to get investment. I mean, that's the key. They're not going to get investment. So therefore, it's adamant that leadership is committed, which I agree with, because you need the investment from the staff. But I think the one thing about corrections that may be slightly different in regards to some of the leadership books we're reading, is that if leadership in corrections is not committed, I don't think that front line should allow that to be an excuse for them to not be committed or invested because of the severity of the consequences of not being committed to the work. So again, some of these books will say, well, if leadership's not committed, then you can't expect front line to be committed. And I get that. I get there's a relationship there. I'm not denying that. I'm not negating that. I'm just telling the audience right now, if you have management that's not committed, I guess maybe I'm saying it this way, bear with me because it's my first time thinking of this thought. But for front line, yes, our management should be committed 100%. But hear me out. If you're having rough times in this profession and management, in your eyes, you don't feel that they're committed, don't depend on them to be committed for you to be committed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because there's been times where I've seen COs come to supervisors and say, hey, I don't know what's going on with you here lately, Lieutenant, but you're not yourself, And I've been told several times by COs, I've hit my plateaus, I've hit my funky periods, and I've had COs come to me, hey, Lou, this ain't you. We know this ain't you. You're better than this. Get your head out of your ass and get back in the game. And when you can get in your feelings if you want to, but in the grand scheme of things, you at the end of the day, they're right. It's not just a frontline problem. Management, it happens to management too, and sometimes it takes somebody underneath you to snap you out of it instead of somebody above you to snap you out of it.
Yeah, that was. Hey guys, this was a great dialogue. I definitely want to do a whole separate show on this. Definitely in the very near future. I wouldn't wait too long because we own this thought. I honestly think this was a thought that was never really expressed like that. Definitely worthy of a whole discussion itself, because I have two other things, but we'll have to wait. Well, I'll save it. I'll save it for the next time we do it. But we could explore this. I'll have the same crew on, and we'll explore that a little more, because I know there's controversy, because the controversy with this topic that we're going to have, and we're definitely going to discuss in the future, guys. So look for it coming up. The controversy we're going to have are the people, and I'll say it, guys, because at the end of the day, we can't sugarcoat it. We want the truth out there. I think the controversy could come from people who are so used to blaming the profession or blaming their management, when we're trying to say, hey, guys, but you're also accountable for it too. And I think that's a wake-up call for many, because they may have had this as an excuse to not have to step up because, well, my management doesn't care, so why should I? And I think we just gave them a reason why. If you're not connected, then you're not committed. And look at the consequences behind that. Hey, Joe, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great discussion. Of course, it's always good to see Connie jump in there. Better late than never. But hey, any time is a good time.
Hold on. So wait, let me just say something, Connie. So first off, we all congratulated Joe for being on News Nation, but now that he's done national TV, he thinks he's fucking Sean Connery. That he can go and flirt with you, Connie. Is that what the hell is that, Joe? What kind of ending was that, Joe?
Okay, here comes that committed and connection. Gangi, get your head out of your ass.
Yeah.
No, but in the end, it's a team effort. It doesn't matter management front line. In our profession, you're a team. It doesn't matter security. It doesn't matter if you're medical, education. We're a team. In the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, we're all there to achieve one goal. To walk out the same way we came in. So, my thoughts is, first of all, remain committed to yourself. Have enough self-respect to remain committed to yourself. And then take that commitment and enforce it, not so much enforce it, but share it with your people and keep them engaged and let them know that they matter and, help them grow, because at the end of the day, all we have is us.
What's funny? I just put this up there. So my academy would be stay alert, stay alive. I'm going to add stay connected, stay alive. Maybe we'll make that a T-shirt that Connie won't even bother making. But I think we've got so many T-shirts. Hey, Russ, what do you got, Russ? Anything in closing?
Yeah. So first off, I think the discussion that we had here, you could probably not only post the whole thing, but over the next couple of weeks, probably get 10 or 15 good shorts out of this thing. I think that at least got that in there. And the last thing I want to close with a quote from Quintus Ennius, and he said, "The victor is not victorious unless the oh man, now I lost it. The victor is not victorious unless the vanquished considers himself so," which means that you can never be defeated unless you finally give up. And so I think that that's where we're at with this. And that's one of my favorite sayings. I was digging around in my head for about 15 minutes there, trying to make sure I got it right. I think I did it.
You know what, Connie, you missed it. At the beginning of the show, we were talking about writing books, and I kind of called Joe and Russ knuckleheads at the very beginning of the show. But as I said, I could safely do it because Russ, I don't know if I consider Joe a threat. But no, I'm kidding. Hold on, you're a threat, Joe. You're a threat. So because Russ is big, I could easily say that because Russ is out in California and I'm in New Jersey, correct? So, listen, in all fairness, if Russ was this close to me, I'm not going to call him a knucklehead, but I will do it this way, though, just to let you know. There's the far away Russ. Russ, you're a knucklehead. You know what I mean? There's the far away Russ right there. But yeah, you missed it. It was a whole because I told them we got to get them writing their books. And Russ is going to make a declaration, and so is Joe at the end of 2023 to get a book in there, just to get one book out there, guys. That's all. Yes. And Connie.
Yes.
Connie, you shifted. So Connie, what was it? Wakes up from having a dream of Shaq. What was it?
I was not dreaming of Shaq.
Wait, what was happening? Oh, you're right. Sorry. No.
Cut it out. There's a documentary on HBO Max that's chronicling Shaq's journey. Right.
All right.
So I was watching that, and it was actually pretty good. I didn't recognize just the evolution of his career, but anyway. It was.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Hey, babe, please cancel HBO Max. Guy, what do you got for closing?
Oh my God. So something that I think was brought up, I think Russ was talking about it, the staff having the ability to focus and, management having a responsibility to give staff the tools to do their jobs effectively. I think that's really important. But I think it's equally as important that management can recognize when staff are burnt out and when their connection isn't necessarily a lack of commitment, but they're just tired, right? And so I think there's two ways for us to look at that. Like, if there is a burnout situation where folks are still committed because they're still coming in, they're still doing their best, but the connection is wavering a little bit because they're just tired, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed. I think that's one thing. But I think all things being equal, right? If that's not the situation, it is important for us to take responsibility of our commitments, right? Like, if I make a commitment, I am obligating myself to make this thing a priority. And so I would just have to say that when this stops being your priority, like, it's time for you to decide whether or not this is the right place for you to be, because the outcomes can be devastating, right? When you are in the facility and you've decided to quietly quit, right? And now you've put the rest of your team in a compromised position because you aren't doing your job, like, it is a problem. So as we talk about this whole issue of commitment and connection, I think we all have to take ownership to just how committed we are, and if we are actually truly connected to the work we do. And if you find there isn't connection but you still want to be here, it is on you to find that connection and recommit yourself.
And guys, that's great. And guys, by the way, I actually have a live show on Sunday with William Young on his channel, Just Corrections. It's going to be in the morning, I think around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the topic is quiet quitting. So it's going to be going to have to express some of this here, and I'll make sure we all get credit for it. But then I still would like to do our own, because at that point, I think we'll definitely have a longer discussion, and it will evolve into something, probably into another area where we're not even ready for, that we can't think of just now. But I want to add something. I agree with Connie 100% about the burnout aspect. Again, I'm not looking. When I said that, guys, I get it. I get it. There could be reasons why you may not feel committed. But I think the end part of this all is that connection, we have to make sure at all times that we are committed, because it does reflect our ability to do our job. And again, if we're not committed and we're not connected, the consequences of it all, just imagine if something does happen, and you in your mind that at one point you didn't give enough, or you didn't give it enough, or you didn't give a shit, and now look what happened. Imagine having to live with that. That's just my opinion. So again, I think that we're put in this position, no matter what, to give a shit, regardless of everybody else who doesn't. Don't use that as an excuse not to give a shit. Use that as an excuse to reinforce and give a shit. If that makes any sense. If everybody around me isn't doing their thing 110%, then maybe I have to survive. That's the key. This is about survival. And I just love that twist. The whole time Connection was more about the helping others. And then you got the twist here where if you're not connected, you're not doing your job. And it's a great argument, guys. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. Stay safe. And guys, remember, look for Joe's video. It should be up on News Nation hopefully sometime tomorrow. He did a great job. So, if you get a chance, please check it out. And also subscribe to News Nation. They seem to be very fair with how we're represented, in the news. So we don't get that, all the time. So give them a shot. As always, guys, stay safe.